It was a quiet afternoon when everything changed. I'll never forget the way the sunlight hit the kitchen counter, casting long shadows over the coffee mug I had been holding, half empty, for what felt like an eternity. My husband, Darren, had been distant for months, short with his words, restless with his actions, but I refused to believe it. After all, we'd built a life together, one full of promises and memories that I never thought would be questioned. But, deep down, I knew something was wrong. The signs had been there, little cracks in the smooth surface of our marriage. He was always busy with work but never really spoke about what he was doing, where he was going, or who he was seeing. I remember the way he started working late too late. Then there were the phone calls that he'd abruptly end whenever I entered the room. I didn't want to believe it at first. I didn't want to admit that the man I trusted more than anyone, the father of our children, the man I thought I knew so well, could be hiding something from me. That's the thing with doubt, isn't it? It creeps in like a slow poison, and before you know it, it takes root in your heart. I didn't want to acknowledge it, but every little thing began to pile up. The late nights turned into mornings when he'd come home reeking of perfume that wasn't mine, and the once lively texts we'd shared started to feel empty, like a conversation between strangers. The day I found the first clue, I was going about my usual routine. The kids were at school, and Darren had left the house early again. I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary, just another morning of picking up the slack he left behind. But as I walked into his office to sort through some papers, I saw it. A small envelope, tucked away behind a stack of invoices. I reached for it without thinking. My heart was already racing, like it knew something. I didn't. I opened it slowly, feeling a mixture of dread and anticipation. Inside was a piece of paper with a name I didn't recognize: Emma Green. I'd never heard that name before, but the address on the paper was what stopped me in my tracks. A house. Not just any house, but a large, beautiful house on the outskirts of town. A place I'd never even seen before, yet it looked so familiar. I didn't have to be told what it was. It was a deed, a property transfer, and that was the moment my whole world began to unravel. I stood there, staring at the paper in my hands, my mind racing. Was Darren buying this house for us? No, that couldn't be right. I hadn't heard a single word about a new house. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't tell me. But then, it hit me, the worst possible thought. The kind of thought you push aside because it feels too ugly to be true. Was this his mistress's house? Was this the secret woman I had been suspicious of for months? I sat down, holding the paper like it was some kind of bomb about to explode. My mind was spinning, my breath shallow. It couldn't be true. Darren loved me. He couldn't possibly be doing this. I'd heard whispers, little things from his coworkers, a random comment here and there, but I had dismissed them. I didn't want to believe the worst in him, but this was undeniable. I couldn't just sit there. I had to know. I spent the rest of the day trying to piece together what I could. I searched online for any mention of Emma Green, hoping I could find some trace of her. As the hours ticked by, my frustration grew. I had to know who she was, and more importantly, what Darren was doing behind my back. I didn't even realize how deeply I was hurting until I saw a picture of her, a woman in her mid-30s, with blonde hair and a smile that seemed too perfect, too rehearsed. The kind of smile that made you feel like she was hiding something. There she was, standing outside of the very house I had seen in the deed papers. My heart dropped. The worst part? It wasn't the house. It wasn't even her. It was the realization that Darren had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I didn't know how long it had been going on, but I knew one thing for sure: my marriage, the life I thought I had been built on a lie. My mind was in chaos. I could hardly think straight. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let this go. Not after everything we'd built together. Not after the years of memories, the children we had raised, the love we'd shared. I wasn't going to let this woman, whoever she was, take what was mine. And I wasn't going to let Darren get away with it. That night, when he came home, I didn't ask him about the house. Not yet. I couldn't, there was too much at stake. But I watched him as he walked through the door, acting like everything was normal. His casual smile, his attempt to kiss me on the cheek like he hadn't been living a double life, made me want to scream. But I didn't. I held it together, just long enough. We ate dinner in silence. He talked about his day, mentioning something about a new project at work. I listened, but my mind was elsewhere, focused on the secret he thought he was keeping from me. After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom. The moment the door closed behind me, I could feel the tension building in my chest. I had to make a decision. Would I confront him? Would I demand answers right then and there? Or would I bide my time? Let him think he could keep the secret for a little longer, until I was ready to hit him with the truth. I decided on the latter. I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to show him who he was dealing with. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog, each step heavier than the last. I didn't let on to Darren that I knew, even though every inch of my body screamed for him to come clean. He still went about his day like nothing had changed, that same false warmth in his voice when he asked how my day went, that same casual smile as if everything was still perfect. I don't know why he thought I couldn't see through the facade. Maybe he underestimated me, or maybe, just maybe, he thought I'd never catch on. But I had to stay calm. I had to stay in control. Every time I felt the anger rise in me, I pushed it back down. I couldn't let him see my hand. I needed to know everything, and I wasn't going to let him rush me into making a mistake. The more I found, the more I realized how deep the betrayal ran. There were more emails, more phone records, each one pointing to Emma Green, and each new piece of evidence only solidified what I had feared. This wasn't just a fling. This was something Darren had been building for months, maybe even years. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. I spent hours online, looking up everything I could about Emma, about the house, about the neighborhood. It was like I was on the edge of a cliff, looking down at a world I never wanted to see but couldn't turn away from. And as much as I wanted to confront him, to shout, to cry, I knew that wasn't how this would end. I needed to take back what was mine, my dignity, my family, my future, and I wasn't going to let a woman like Emma, or a man like Darren, take that from me. So, I waited. Days passed, and Darren seemed to relax a little, as if he thought everything had gone back to normal. But he didn't know that I was watching him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I didn't just want to confront him, I wanted to make sure Emma never saw a single dime of the life he had promised her. I wanted to take away everything he thought was his, to make him feel the loss in a way he would never forget. It wasn't until the following weekend that I got my chance. Darren had been invited to some work event, but I knew it wasn't just a meeting. He was meeting her. I didn't know how I knew. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was the way his eyes darted when he mentioned the event. Something in the pit of my stomach told me this was the perfect moment to act. That morning, I decided to make a plan. I knew where Emma's house was now, the one Darren had been secretly buying for her. It wasn't too far from our own home, just a short drive away. I didn't know what I expected to find, but I had to see it for myself. I had to stand there, face to face with the reality of my husband's betrayal. I drove past the house that afternoon. It was even more beautiful than the photos I had seen, with manicured gardens and a grand entrance that screamed money. Everything about it seemed perfect, like it belonged in a magazine. And I realized in that moment how far Darren had gone. He had been planning a future with her, and I wasn't part of that future. I stood there for a few minutes, letting the weight of it all sink in. I didn't know if I was angry, hurt, or numb. I was everything all at once. I didn't want to make a scene, but the thought of this woman, this stranger living in the house that Darren was buying with my trust, with my love, was too much. I had to take back control. I called a real estate agent I knew. It wasn't just any agent, it was a friend I had used for years, someone I trusted. I didn't tell her why I needed her help, just that I needed her to help me put in a competitive offer on a property I was interested in. It was the kind of thing people did all the time in the world of real estate: buy a house and flip it, or buy it just for the sake of owning it. But I wasn't going to just buy it for myself, I was going to buy it out from under Darren. My heart pounded as I arranged the details. I could practically feel Darren's face when he realized I had taken the house from him. I wanted him to see it, feel it. I wanted him to know the consequences of what he'd done. And as the week passed, everything fell into place. The deal was done. I didn't tell Darren what I had done, not immediately. He didn't deserve to know, not yet. I needed him to understand how serious this was, how serious I was. The day I finally told him, the moment I let the truth spill out, was one of the most surreal moments of my life. He came home from his work event, just like any other day, his suit jacket tossed over his shoulder, his tired smile barely hiding the guilt in his eyes. I waited until he was halfway through dinner before I spoke. He was telling me about some big deal he had closed that day, but his words were just noise in my ears. I wasn't really listening. I wasn't interested in anything he had to say anymore. Darren, I said, my voice calm, but with an edge I didn't try to hide. I've bought a house. His face froze for a moment, his fork hovering in midair. What do you mean? He asked, the confusion in his voice barely masking the anxiety beginning to creep in. I took a deep breath, watching his expression shift as I continued. I bought the house on Riverstone Drive, the one you've been buying for her, the one you've been planning to share with her. I thought I should at least get it out of the way, since it seems like you were planning a future I wasn't a part of. He put the fork down, his face draining of color. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about, Darren, I said, my voice sharp. I know about Emma. I know about the house. I know you've been lying to me. And now, it's mine. There was silence between us, thick and heavy. I could feel his heart racing, his mind scrambling for a way out, for something to say that would fix this. But nothing could, not anymore. Why? He finally asked, his voice almost pleading. Why would you do this to me? Why? I repeated, almost laughing, though there was no humor in it. Because you've been doing it to me for months, lying, sneaking around, planning a future with someone else. You've taken enough from me, Darren. Now I'm taking this from you. His face twisted with anger, with frustration, but also with fear. He didn't know what to do, didn't know how to fix it. And deep down, I think he realized there was no fixing this. Not anymore. The room was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. Darren didn't move, didn't say anything at first, just stared at me with that vacant look he always had when he was cornered. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, trying to find a way out, trying to salvage the shattered pieces of his life. But there was no quick fix, no excuse that could undo what he had done. For a long time, he didn't say anything, just looked at me with eyes that used to be full of love, now filled with fear and shame. It was almost pathetic to see him like this. The man who had once been the center of my world was now just a stranger, a man I didn't know at all. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't waiting for him to beg me to understand. I knew I wouldn't get that. What I wanted, what I needed, was for him to realize just how badly he had messed up. I wanted him to understand the consequences of his actions, the price he was going to pay for betraying me. I don't know what you think this is, Darren, I said, my voice steadier now. But I'm not some woman you can just walk all over. You thought you could build a life with her behind my back. You thought you could replace me with someone younger, someone more exciting. Well, I'm done being your doormat, and I'm done pretending that I didn't know. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. No, you don't get to speak right now. Not until I'm done. He closed his mouth, his eyes still wide with disbelief, and I could see the anger start to flicker beneath the surface. He wanted to lash out, to defend himself, but he didn't know how. The reality was too much for him to bear. He'd gambled everything on a lie, and now it was all coming crashing down. The house is mine now, Darren, I said again, my voice a little more cold now, sharper with each word. I bought it. I put down the money. You were too busy pretending it was for her, but you forgot one thing: she wasn't the only one who had a claim to it. I saw his eyes narrow, his jaw tightening as he processed what I had just said. You can't just take that from me, he said finally, his voice low but tinged with panic. You can't just watch me, I interrupted, my tone biting. I can, and I did. I am not the one who walked out on my family for a woman who doesn't care about you. You're the one who destroyed everything, Darren, not me. You're the one who threw us away. I stood up slowly, not breaking eye contact. I could feel the energy in the room shift, the tension hanging thick between us. For a moment, I thought he might get up and try to do something, yell at me, maybe even try to grab me. But instead, he just sat there, staring at the table, his hands clenched into fists. I loved you, Darren, I whispered, the anger in my voice softening just enough to let the hurt through. I really did. But I'm not going to let you ruin me. Not like this. You thought you could take everything from me and just walk away with her. But that's not how this ends. There was a long silence as Darren let my words sink in. I could see the guilt written all over his face, but it wasn't the guilt I wanted. It wasn't the remorse for the way he treated me, it was the regret of getting caught. And that only made me angrier. I'm done, I said quietly. I'm done playing your fool. I'm done pretending everything is okay. You've already made your choice, Darren. And now, you'll have to live with it. I turned away from him, not waiting for a response. I didn't need one. I had said what I needed to say, and I had done what I needed to do. The ball was in his court now. He could apologize, beg for forgiveness, but none of that would fix the broken trust between us. I walked out of the room, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. For the first time in months, I felt free, like I had finally taken control of my own life. It wasn't about the house. It wasn't about Darren's betrayal. It was about me taking back my power, about realizing that I was worth more than the lies and deceit he had thrown at me. But as much as I wanted to believe that I had won, that I had taken the upper hand, there was still a part of me that felt hollow. Because no matter how many walls I built around myself, no matter how much I fought to regain my dignity, there was still the aching question that lingered in the back of my mind. Was I enough for him? Or was I always just the second choice? The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, legal calls, and meetings with the real estate agent. I knew it was only a matter of time before Darren would realize that I wasn't going to let this go, that I wasn't going to quietly fade into the background while he moved on to the next chapter of his life. But I also knew that I couldn't let this drag on forever. I couldn't keep living in this anger, in this constant state of betrayal. In the end, I decided to take the house and sell it. I didn't want it as a reminder of Darren's lies, and I certainly didn't want to be the one to live in it, pretending it had any meaning other than the pain it had caused. Instead, I sold it and used the money to invest in something for myself, something that had nothing to do with him. I wanted a fresh start, and I was determined to have one, even if it meant taking baby steps toward healing. Darren and I eventually had the conversation we both knew was coming. He apologized, or at least, he tried to. He told me how sorry he was, how he had made a mistake. But the truth was, I didn't need his apology. I needed him to understand what he had taken from me. I needed him to know that, no matter how sorry he was, he couldn't undo the damage he had caused. We didn't end on good terms, but we didn't end on bad ones either. There was no grand reconciliation, no tearful reunion, just a quiet acknowledgement that we had both been different people than we had been when we first met. And as for Emma, well, she never got the house. It went to someone else, someone who didn't know about the betrayal, someone who would make new memories in a place that had no connection to the lies that Darren and I had lived. I never told her what had happened. I didn't need to. What mattered was that she never got to take anything from me. Not my husband, not my life, not my future. And as for me, well, I moved on, slowly, but surely. I learned to trust again, first myself, and then, little by little, others. Because in the end, that's what betrayal does. It doesn't just take away what's been stolen. It teaches you to build something better, something stronger, from the pieces that are left. As I sit here now, reflecting on everything that's happened, I can't help but wonder what it all really means. The house, the betrayal, the anger, it all feels so distant now, like a chapter of my life that I'm slowly closing. I've learned so much over the past months, more than I ever wanted to know, and certainly more than I ever expected to experience. But the most important lesson I've learned is this: sometimes, the most painful moments in our lives are the ones that set us free. It's funny how a betrayal, something that could have destroyed me, ended up being the thing that saved me. I didn't let it break me. I let it rebuild me, stronger than I ever was before. I think about how much I used to believe in us, in our marriage, in the future we were supposed to have. But that future was built on lies, and it wasn't meant to last. I see now that I needed to go through this to understand my own worth, my own strength. No one, no man, no woman gets to take that from me. Not anymore. There's a strange sense of peace now. Not the kind you get from an apology. Not the kind you get from having everything work out exactly how you want, but the kind that comes from within, the kind that you find when you let go of the past and stop waiting for someone else to make things right. Because in the end, the only person who can truly heal you, the only person who can make it all better, is you. And if I'm being honest, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever find love again or if I'll just be content on my own. What I do know is this: I'm not afraid of what comes next. I've faced the worst of it, and I'm still standing. I've learned that healing isn't a straight path. It's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes it hurts more than you can bear, but it's worth it. Every step forward is worth it. So, to anyone out there who's feeling broken, betrayed, or lost, know that you're not alone. I've been there, and I'm here to tell you that it's okay to take your time. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to grieve. But it's also okay to stand up, dust yourself off, and say, I'm not done yet. This isn't the end of my story. Because the truth is, life goes on. And when you take back control, when you start making choices for yourself instead of waiting for someone else to fix things, you'll find that it's not as impossible as it seems. You'll find a way. I don't know what comes next, but for the first time in a long time, I'm looking forward to it. And so, I leave you with this. No matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how bad the hurt, remember that the end of one chapter is always the beginning of another. And that next chapter, it's yours to write.